12 March 1944. 4:20. The fog above the eastern front lay heavy and cold, turning every shape into a dim silhouette. Inside a reinforced hangar near Vitebsk, engineers prepared the Soviet prototype, designated S-17 Iznichos-Hitel, a heavy interceptor whose existence was known only to a handful of officers. The aircraft's bulky frame, forged from layered steel plates and riveted by hand, looked less like a fighter and more like a weaponized machine built to endure punishment no plane had ever survived. Its engine, a reinforced twin-stage radial experimental unit, could push the craft far beyond what regular fighters could sustain. The design was raw, brutal, and entirely unlike the graceful lines of Western interceptors. Yet it carried a strange, imposing beauty, like a titan forged in darkness. Near the aircraft stood its only pilot, Captain Markov, a man shaped by the war as much as by discipline. His face was hard, eyes narrowed with a certainty that came not from pride but from duty. Command had chosen him not simply for skill, but for a capability to operate alone under crushing pressure. He had flown countless missions, each carving deeper lines of resolve across his expression. The S-17 was assigned to him alone, for no one else understood its weight, its power, or the responsibility it demanded. Mechanics slid the hangar doors open, and the cold wind rushed in. Markov climbed the ladder and lowered himself into the cockpit. The interior was tight and utilitarian, filled with exposed wiring, raw steel, and crude gauge clusters that shook when the engine idled. Yet this harsh, industrial environment felt natural to him. He pulled the oxygen mask tight around his face and locked his harness. When the engine roared to life, the entire hangar vibrated, dust drifting from the rafters. The S-17 shuddered, then settled into a deep metallic rumble, a reminder of its immense potential. Once airborne, the prototype climbed slowly through the clouds, its heavy frame resisting the ascent until the twin superchargers engaged and pushed it higher. As dawn broke behind distant hills, the first glimmer of sunlight reflected off the frozen rivers below. Markov scanned the horizon. Intelligence reported an enemy bomber formation northbound, escorted by fighters. The S-17's mission was straightforward: intercept, disrupt, and prevent the attack on Soviet supply convoys moving through the region. What was not stated in the orders, but well understood, was that Markov alone was expected to face an entire group. Soon, dark specks appeared against the pale sky. The enemy escorts moved in layered formation, confident in their numbers. Markov pushed the throttle forward, and the S-17 surged with unexpected force. The aircraft's heavy weight stabilized it against recoil, allowing Markov to fire short, precise bursts. The first enemy fighter broke apart in silence, trailing a plume of smoke as it spiraled downward. The formation reacted instantly, splitting into two wings. But Markov flew straight into the center, using the plane's reinforced frame to absorb glancing hits. Rivets rattled, metal groaned. Yet the aircraft held steady. In rapid succession, two more enemy fighters fell. Markov's calm never wavered. Each shot was deliberate, each movement grounded in discipline rather than emotion. Behind him, the sky began to fill with drifting smoke trails, broken silhouettes, and burning fragments. The S-17, though scarred and streaked with soot, cut through the chaos like a machine designed for nothing else. It refused to break, and therefore neither did he. The bombers ahead attempted to climb, but the S-17 climbed faster. Its reinforced airframe prevented compression damage at higher altitudes, allowing Markov to close distance rapidly. When the bombers realized they could not outrun him, they scattered in an attempt to divide his attention. Markov, however, chose his target with precision. He lined the lead aircraft in his sights, fired a controlled burst, and watched as the heavy machine lurched, engines failing one by one. The bomber dipped and began its long descent, disappearing beneath the cloud layer. With the formation broken, the remaining escorts attempted one last counterattack. They looped behind the S-17, firing into its armor. The bullets left dense and shallow scars, but the aircraft's layered design absorbed the punishment. Markov executed a tight roll, swung behind his pursuers, and eliminated them one at a time with mechanical finality. The last fighter, trailing smoke, attempted to flee westward, but Markov pursued relentlessly until the damaged aircraft succumbed and spiraled into the frost-covered fields below. The sky grew quiet. Only the deep hum of the S-17 remained, steady and imposing. Markov surveyed the empty air, confirming there were no survivors capable of completing the mission. He exhaled slowly. There was no triumph on his face, no hint of celebration. The war allowed no such luxury. Duty carried him forward, and duty would carry him back home. As he descended toward the airfield, the first rays of morning lit the S-17's damaged hull. The aircraft looked even more monstrous upon return than at departure, scarred, battered, yet unbroken. Mechanics stared in disbelief as Markov taxied to a halt. Smoke drifted from several impact marks, but the frame remained whole, its presence almost unnatural. When Markov removed his mask, his expression remained the same calm, concentrated stare seen before takeoff. He stepped down from the cockpit with the poise of someone who had neither won nor lost, but simply fulfilled what was required. Not long after landing, officers documented the encounter, photographing the aircraft from every angle. The S-17 became an unspoken legend among the ground crews. A machine that returned from impossible missions without boasting and without witness except for the scars on its steel. Markov himself avoided attention. His name rarely appeared in official reports, partly due to secrecy, partly due to his own preference. Yet those who saw him that morning described the same detail. The quiet certainty in his eyes, the look of a man who knew he would fly again, regardless of what awaited above the front. The S-17 prototype remained classified for decades. Most of its documents disappeared into locked archives, and its photographs gathered dust in unmarked folders. But among the few surviving images, grainy, cold, unmistakably real one stands out. Captain Markov seated in the cockpit after the battle, oxygen mask still secured, eyes fixed forward, while behind him the distant sky is littered with fading trails from the enemy aircraft he destroyed. The photo captures not a moment of triumph, but the exact nature of war itself. Quiet, relentless, and bound to those willing to carry its weight.